Hello and welcome to the I Am Woman project, where every week we have deep, thought-provoking and interesting conversations with thought leaders, change instigators, rule breakers and creative minds who think differently, sparking creativity and inspiration. Our special guests on our show cover a variety of topics just for you, and they share their personal stories to inspire, motivate and empower you, our listener. The I Am Woman podcast is produced for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at www.catherineplano.com. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favourite RSS feed or iTunes. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get into the show. Today we have the beautiful Renee Slansky, a vibrant and a warm heart. Since being launched into the spotlight in 2007 as the international winner of Miss Inside Sport, Renee has gone on to become a familiar face in the industry. Her national and international modelling career has seen her grace many mainstream magazines, front covers, billboards and popular brands. Becoming a national finalist for Miss Universe Australia in 2009 propelled Renee into the public eye as a role model for young women and guest at many social and media events. During this period, Renee began developing her accomplished TV presenting career and worked with several networks such as Channel 7, Channel 9 and Channel 10. Renee's passion for writing and educating women on how to have healthy relationships resulted in the launch of her successful blog, The Dating Directory, which has allowed her to become an international professional relationship and dating blogger. What a place to do the interview. She has moved to the south of France, my hometown. So sit back and relax. Enjoy the interview. Welcome to the beautiful Renee Slansky. Welcome to I Am Woman Project.
Thank you. I'm excited to be on the show.
So just before we begin, just sort of let our listeners know there may be a little bit of background noise. The lovely Renee is living in the south of France and there's some works going on outside. So just in case you hear some kind of strange noise, it does sound a little bit like Transformers. And if you saw the beautiful Renee, you would understand why I say that, because she actually looks like one of the girls from Transformers. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Renee, as we were having a bit of a chat beforehand, the dating directory, how did you come about with that concept? What a brilliant concept.
Yeah, well, look, 3 years ago, my site was originally called Bella and Darcy, and the heart behind that was I wanted to create an online platform for women to help them find, cultivate, and build healthy and fulfilling relationships. And I just found that whilst I had a really good, kind of audience, that a lot of people didn't even know what Bella and Darcy was because of the name. So I decided to do a rebrand. And whilst doing the rebrand, I wanted to add a directory listing page to my website whereby people could look for a business or a professional service that was related to dating and relationships. And then from there, I thought, okay, that's a great name, the Dating Directory. It really makes it clear, makes the name as clear as what my vision was for the website. So I essentially wanted the site to be a place where if we get lost and we want to know where we go to for directions, we look at Google, we look at the yellow pages, or we look at a map. And I wanted the Dating Directory to be an online version for that, for women in the dating and relationship and romance world, so it's a place where not only you can get relationship advice or dating tips, but you can also be put in touch with other resources and people and companies that can help you and educate you on how to have healthy and fulfilling relationships.
I just love it. And I love the fact that you're also in south of France. I think south of France and Paris is one of the most romantic cities in the world. That's my belief anyway. I just think it's a perfect place to be, and to have the dating directory as well goes hand in hand.
Oh yeah, I mean, I am probably the most hopeless romantic you'll ever meet. I mean, I'm literally like, I love my Disney princes and everything like that, which is quite funny because everyone's always known me to be this hopeless romantic, and then unfortunately, I used to have a lot of hopeless relationships before that, and this blog has really been a kind of like a journey for me as well, and what I've gone through, and I've been able to then relay that through my blog. And now that we're living here in France, it's just it's definitely great, I think, to mix up your environment, and you meet a lot of different people, and you see how people have different relationships around the world, and you realize the more that you travel, there's just such a big need for advice in so many different areas. And to be honest, the reason why I started my blog years ago was because I was in a very toxic relationship, and it was a relationship where the man that I was with actually had a child. And at the time, it was still a little bit of a taboo subject to be the other woman in a relationship. Not that, he was still with his ex-wife, but it was just, there was no support. No one talked about what it was like to be a stepmom. So I wanted to create this voice for women who were in unique situations, because dating and relationships nowadays are so different to how they were 10, 20 or 30 years ago. So just meeting all the different people, because of the lifestyle of my partner and I, where we have to travel a lot, you really get an understanding that, there's such a need for people and for someone to voice what it's like to be in a unique situation, to be in a unique relationship, and what sort of advice you might need. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard on one aspect to travel all the time, but on the other hand, it's just I guess it's what's really growing my blog as well at the same time.
What an adventure. I have to ask you, Renee, when you said that relationships now are different than what they used to be, how different are they? Just for my, I guess, understanding, and for our listeners as well.
Well, I think, you've got a lot of different influences today, the influence of technology, the influence of social media, whereby we're a generation that is all about fast-paced, convenience, and disposable. We have access to so many more people now because of online dating, because of dating apps, dating sites, that we've also almost have a disposable attitude towards relationships, because we know we can access the next one so quickly and so easily. We also have commercials in the media which tell us that, you want the quick way, you want the quick fix, instead of working at something and having the mentality to stick by it, and not just be in a relationship based on how you feel, but rather about what is right. Love isn't just a feeling. Some days you might wake up and you don't really feel like you love your man, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you leave him. Also, I think, we have a lot more divorce as well, and a lot more relationships whereby there are children involved, because, generations nowadays, half of the marriages actually end in divorce, which is actually quite sad. So you've got people that are getting married young, but then they're also getting divorced young, and so of course they're wanting to date again. So people are in their second or third marriages, or they're perhaps dating later on in life, because for women maybe their career has been their priority. So there's all these different factors, that is basically just a part of, the evolution of society, really. But unfortunately, what they start to do is they start to encroach on traditional values and morals, and we forget that, love isn't just about convenience. It's a whole lot more than that, and each relationship is completely different. But it doesn't mean that just because it's different that it has to fail, or that it can't be successful in every way.
So true. I think that you made two good points there, where you talked about, we do go through, I look at a relationship, it's like sometimes you're on the same waves. When I look at the ocean, sometimes we're on the same wave, and other times we're on different waves. And I think that because everything's so convenient and accessible, that when things aren't going too great, people just give up too quickly. They don't spend that time and energy to really work through it. And in actual fact, if you actually spend that time to work through it, it's amazing how your relationship becomes deeper and stronger and better. The other thing that you were talking about too was that each relationship is different. It's amazing how many women and men that I encounter where they won't get themselves involved in a relationship because of past relationships. So they bring this on to, they allow that their past relationship experience be the block for them to move forward or involve themselves with another person.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the problem nowadays is that a lot of people haven't realized that how much self-work you need to do on yourself before you can actually attract the right person into your life. We think that basically finding the right person is just going out there and searching for them rather than actually developing ourselves in such a way that we can just be who we are and attract that person into our life. And to be honest, there isn't a lot of education in relationships in a healthy way nowadays, unless you've had it modeled to you by your parents or by people that you can trust. It's really hard to know what the fundamentals are to have a healthy relationship and what the foundations are, like communication, trust, transparency, all those sort of things. And a lot of people base their happiness and their decisions on circumstances. So what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, I believe that you've got a choice to build the life that you want, and that you have a choice, every day to mentally, and emotionally make these decisions which are actually going to better your life. So we've all got a past and we've all got issues because we're all human. And the fact is, though, we can either choose to live in the past or we can choose to let go of it and live in the present. And then some people, unfortunately, not only live in the past, but a lot of people can also live in the future as well. And, so what I mean by that is people might go, well, when this is like this, then I'll be happy, or when I reach this goal, then I'll be happy, rather than just embracing what's happening now and dealing with the present situation, because that eventually is what's going to build the future that they want.
Oh, that's so true. And, quite often people do focus on what they want to have, and therefore their actions, are completely reactive rather than being that very thing they want. So if, for example, it's like, how could you find love if you don't love yourself? And how could you find happiness if you're not happy within? So Absolutely. It's about being exactly that, whatever that thing that you want out of a relationship. And I agree with you. I think communication is key. And I think if anything, that's the number one thing is communication, because it's amazing how many people hold back information in fear and not being able not able to be transparent with their partner because they're afraid that their partner may judge them, feeling or thinking this way, and they hold back and and look elsewhere sometimes because they're not fulfilled in their relationship, because they're not able to stand in their truth and be able to communicate. And I find too that in a relationship, and still including myself too, still to this day, my husband and I will be talking about what's important to you about a relationship. Even though that we've got the same values, very old-fashioned, very passionate, we love cooking, we love music. But then when we think about what is important to us about relationships, or this relationship, it's amazing how it can be quite different. So then we communicate that how could we make that happen so that we're both happy, in the relationship itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, communication is essential. And the funny thing is, like the old saying is, that we've got more ways to communicate nowadays with technology, yet we're talking less to each other. So it's about stripping it back to just the basics, I think, sometimes. And a lot of people think, well, I do talk to my husband, or, I do talk to my girlfriend. And it's really, communication is something a little bit deeper than that. It's about actually sitting down, having that quality time to talk to one another. It's about, like being transparent and just being open with them. It's funny because I used to have this habit where maybe because I'm a writer, I actually feel more comfortable texting something rather than talking face to face, because I'm not someone that really loves confrontation. And then my fiance said to me, he's like, please, for the love of God, can you stop writing and just talk to my face? And I was like, oh, okay. So that was something I needed to learn, and a fear that I needed to overcome, that, I can talk to him without thinking that, he's going to judge me, or, that I'm going to be put on display. And honestly, men communicate, a lot different to women as well. So it's about finding a balance between the two of you where you can both not only communicate effectively, but the other person is receptive to that as well. A lot of the time we think, well, I'll just give him the silent treatment, or, he should just know what's wrong. And it's like, well, no, unless you tell him, he won't actually know, and then a lot of the other time people communicate, or they speak out of anger and emotion, instead of just stopping, thinking, giving it a few minutes, giving maybe a few hours, and then speaking when you're a little bit more level-headed. So there's all these little ways that we can actually make communication between a couple a lot more effective. Thereby, it's not about how many words you say, it's about how you say the words and what words you say.
True. I used to, and probably in my past relationship, I still do a little bit now, but not so much, because we've got amazing communication between the two of us. But I used to write. I felt that I was able to say it without emotion, get it all out on paper, and be clear about my message, what I wanted to say.
Yep.
So sometimes back then that used to help me deliver what I wanted to deliver without the emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mean. I used to do that as well. I mean, I used to journal and everything. So, and because you're a writer like me, it's just a natural instinct to put it all on paper, because then we can sit back and think about it and look at it and go, yeah, okay. But unfortunately, if the person you're writing to, or your husband, or your relationship partner, that might not be the way that they best receive the communication, so that's where you have to find the balance, where they need to understand, okay, well, because I'm writing something doesn't mean that I'm avoiding talking to you. You need to understand that's my way of doing it, whereas we also need to understand, well, their way is actually speaking about it. And you've just got to find that, like anything, you've got to find that place where you meet halfway, and I think that's what is also a successful part of a relationship, is where you've got two people that are finding that balance, where they both want to work at it, so they both do their part to understand the other person, and there's that little bit of give and that little bit of take, and you're basically meeting each other halfway.
I love it. Absolutely. You're oozing with passion and love. So I'm going to ask you, Renee, what's the best part of your job?
The best part of my job is probably when I get an email from a random person halfway across the world who's just said, thank you so much. Like, you've got no idea. I really thought I was alone. I had no idea that I needed to do this. And just to hear the response from my followers, and the encouragement that they bring me to know that, I am making an impact, that what I have to say is, being received. And that to me is what keeps me going, is not only my burning desire. I mean, I know there are people out there who, might have millions of followers, but at the end of the day, if I just have one woman or man that I've impacted, that to me is enough to keep me going.
So obviously you love writing. What exactly do you write about when it comes to relationship? Because it's such a broad topic, isn't it? When you're talking about love, romance, and relationships, there's so much to write about.
Yeah, well, there is. I mean, I do everything from on my website, I do reviews, and whether it's books, movies, and everything's always related to dating and relationships. That's my main passion and my main heart. I try to make my advice pretty practical and relevant, I must say. So I don't make it waft on too much. I like to keep everything, dot point. I'm a very practical sort of person. So I like to make sure that my advice is something that people can actually apply to their life, whether it's someone that's going on a date for the very first time, or someone who's going through divorce, how to deal with rejection, anything and everything that you can think when it comes to dating and relationships. Guarantee I will write about that, or promote it, or get people to guest post articles about that as well. So, yeah.
Love it. So, Renee, with the benefit of hindsight, what would you have done differently in your life or career?
I think it's funny because I never actually planned any of this. It all just kind of worked out the way it was. And I look back and every single step over the last 10 years has been integral to the next step to where I am today. So I definitely know that this was where I was meant to be. The only thing that I think I would do different is that I would have been probably worked a little bit harder and a little bit smarter when I was in my early 20s, whereby I could maybe have more the finances that I needed to be able to do what I want to do with this right now instead of having to wait, or just having a little bit more direction. But to be honest, everything really, it's just funny. Like, it's each and every step has led me to where I am now, and I guess I can look back and appreciate that rather than focus on what I could have done instead. So
it sounds like you just followed your heart.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's awesome. So what's the best piece of advice that you have ever been given?
Oh, goodness, that I've ever been given. I wouldn't say there is probably one best piece of advice. I think probably the biggest lesson that I've learned, that if you want something, you need to want it bad enough to work for it. I think, like, you can have a dream and you can have a vision, but at the end of the day, to make it come to life, that's entirely up to you. And you've got to put in the hard work and the hours and the blood, sweat and tears to be able to finally make that a reality.
So just for our listeners, obviously, because we speak with a lot of different entrepreneurs and business owners and so forth, what would be some of your tips in regards to some of the lessons that you've learnt? What have you done to be where you are today?
I think, number one, every day you have a choice and it's a new day, and you can either choose to focus on the past and the mistakes, or you can choose to focus on the present and choose happiness. Happiness is a choice, and you really do have the power, well, most people do, to be able to build the life and the career that you want to. You just, like anything, how bad do you want it, So I think definitely cultivating a mindset whereby you learn to just automatically focus on the positive, and you learn to just, suck it up and just have a mindset of, yep, I can do this, and learning to let go of self-doubt. Another big thing is, which is what I used to struggle with, is I always used to compare myself to a lot of other women out there. And maybe it's because I have a background in modeling, whereby, everything's, of course, about physical appearance and nowadays it's all about social media following and everything like that. And comparison can be a great thing for motivation and for giving you direction, but it can also be quite negative when you start to beat yourself up because you're not at the level that you thought you would be now, or you're never going to be as good as someone else. So I think learning to just focus on your own goals rather than worrying about, your neighbors or something else, and knowing that, other women are not my competition. I'm not in this because I'm trying to be better than anyone else. I'm in this to be able to just do my purpose, and my purpose is to help people. And thirdly, I think, just when it comes to business and entrepreneurs is I'm such a goal person. I'm such a list person. Every day I'm writing lists of what I need to do. I'm setting goals monthly, yearly. It really helps, you write the vision down and it becomes so much more clearer. And putting those goals somewhere where you're reminded daily of what you're aiming towards really helps you keep on track, in just even practical ways. That's probably been a really big thing for me as well.
You brought up some fantastic points. I love the fact that learning from your mistakes, and I think that's really important, not getting stuck in your past, but what was my learnings from that experience? And it helps you move forward, which I think is also, it's helping cultivating that positive mindset.
Mm.
And when you were talking about comparison, the other thing that I tend to do too is because I believe there is no such thing as competition. We are all unique and all authentic. So what I do when I use the word comparison, I look at it as my benchmark. So it's more like a modeling technique where I think, okay, this is what I would aspire to be like, and use that as a
Yeah.
comparison benchmark, as a way to benchmark, so that I'm working towards that. And of course, once I've reached that, then I'll pick another benchmark. So that's how I use my comparison. But you're right, it can be it could be a motivator, but it can go in the other direction too when you're too focused on what other people are doing. And social media is probably, like you said, it's probably one of those things that people always, look at your social media platforms, and how's your engagement piece. And
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough, and honestly, like, especially in my industry, before I started to do writing full time, it's heavy because you can't help but compare, because you're told to compare. And now, and especially when I was modeling, a lot of the times you used to turn up to a casting, they now ask in a casting how many followers you have. So forget that maybe I have 10 years experience. If I don't have 10 million followers, I might not get the job, which is kind of upsetting, but and it's a relief to be able to step out of that industry. But, even the media, look like this person or this celebrity. It's definitely something that's massive in our culture. And I think that it's also wonderful that there are a lot of other organizations out there and a lot of other women that are starting to realize that comparing yourself and trying to compete with the next person is just never going to get us anywhere, and those are the sort of women that I love to promote and I love to stand by, because that is the new attitude that we need to start building in our life.
And it's not like you haven't had the experience. I mean, when you have a look at what you have done in the past, from like all the TV shows, from The Price is Right to a whole lot of other stuff that you've done, it's like you've got a lot of experience. So it's interesting how they will look at, and I know I've heard people say the same thing when they want to publish a book. They look at, how many followers do you have? And
Yeah.
it's changed. It never used to be like that. It was, is this going to be a good, of value and a good product, rather than looking at how many followers you have.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we've taken the focus of what the content is rather than just the actual amount of people that just, yeah, exactly, like, follow you. And that's sad, because, I think that there are a lot of wonderful people out there who have an inspiring story or have a message or who have a heart, and that can really help shape and change the world for the better. But because they don't have the spotlight on them, they're not necessarily seen as important, and that's just it's sad, and that's something that I probably still struggle with at times. I feel like, why does my post, which is all about how to build a healthy relationship and how to have a fulfilling life, get less likes than someone who has a picture of their pouting lips or their breasts, but that is the way of the world at the moment. And I think, that's only sustainable for so long before people start to realize there's an emptiness in their life, and that they will start to then look at other people who can actually help fulfill that hole.
Yeah, I stay clear away from social media. I actually have people, my team, that run all that. I don't touch it. So for me, I wouldn't know. But I think that, when you're having a look at, everything's fast paced. It's all about visual, isn't it? And when you're talking about speaking to that part of your brain, the unconscious part of your brain, which is that 95% of who we are on a daily basis, we go for pictures, quick fix.
Oh, absolutely.
What kind of
yeah.
emotion is this? Is this resonating within me, and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's and yet you have valuable content, which is, we're talking about you write for the Huffington Post and a whole lot of other platforms. So you've got amazing content.
Yeah, and look, it's something that I really, I get the visual side as well. And of course, like, I will be doing my own visual side with YouTube videos and things like that. And I believe that, social media can also be something that we can use to our advantage as well. So it's just a matter of time before, people realize that there has to be something more than just someone's appearance that, motivates us in life.
Yeah, so true, so true. So Renee, what advice would you give your younger self?
My younger self, I would probably have to say the biggest struggle that I had when I was young was that I placed a lot of my value in men. And because of that, I had very low self-esteem. I constantly dated the wrong sort of men and had very toxic relationships. And it wasn't until I realized my true value and my worth that I was actually able to essentially really get ahead in every aspect of my life. And I really learned what true self-love was. But it's just so funny, when you're young, and especially because I was such a romantic, I was just, a little bit airy-fairy when it came to guys. And I really thought that they were the ones who would fulfill all my happiness and my desires. And it's just not the right sort of mindset to have, especially when you're so young and so influential, when they can be so influential on you, so I definitely think if I could go back, I would say to my little self that, no, your value doesn't come from men.
Yeah, it's so true. Sometimes we do, and as we don't know that when we're younger, because it's not till we get a little bit older and that we have a better understanding, I think, too.
Yeah.
But as we get older too, we tend to worry a lot more too. So, do you worry? At night times when you're lying there, do you worry about things like what keeps you up at night time?
Well, to be honest, I have actually done a lot of self-work on myself in the last probably 2 years. So I've actually come a long way where like I said, the biggest thing for me was learning to get my happiness and peace, not from circumstances, because life is always changing and there's certain things that you can't always have control over, but you can control your reaction or your emotion to that situation. So I've learned to just embrace the moment, to go with the flow, to realize that, things will go wrong, and that's okay. So the main thing that probably keeps me up at night is just thinking, okay, now what do I need to write on my list, and what post do I need to do tomorrow, and and just little things like that. I try to make sure that majority of the time I actually do have a deep sense of peace in my life, so that, which I think is important as well, because I do feel a sense of responsibility if I'm giving out this advice to women and people around the world and they're taking it literally. I need to know that it's coming from a place where I'm certain about what I do and what I write about as well. So I really make sure that I'm constantly grounded and that I'm learning to appreciate the little things in life and deal with any of the hardships in the most practical and emotionally intelligent way possible.
Oh, beautiful. So when you are lying in bed and thinking about, maybe what am I going to write about? What's your little trick? Like, how do you get that out of your head and get to sleep?
Well, what I do is I try to write a list. I'm such a list person. I've got a notebook that I carry around. I'm always writing in it, or I've got something on my phone, or I've got lists on my computer. And I'm always trying to make sure that each day I'm achieving what I need to do, so that before I go to bed, I know, okay, I've done that. Okay, great. And then I write a list of what I need to do the next day, and I go, okay, now I know what I need to do tomorrow. So, okay, I can go to sleep. Yeah, and eventually I just drift off to sleep anyway, because my mind's mentally exhausted anyway.
I do the same. I have a book that I write everything on, so it helps me empty my head out. So, yeah, Renee, definitely. If you had to pick one word that best describes your personal brand, what would that be?
See, this is hard. I'm sure there's a word in French which describes what I want to say, but I couldn't quite work it out. But I'd have to say, look, I'm hoping that my brand is inspiring, not so much in the normal way that we think, like airy-fairy inspiring, but more in the way that it really is a place where women can go to feel hope, to feel educated, which then in turn helps them feel like, okay, they've got the strength to do what they need to do, or yes, I can do this, or yes, I know now, what is required. I'm wanting to inspire them to live a life and to live in a relationship that is full of joy and full of, consistency in a good way. So I'm really hoping that, all my writings and my place and my brand is a source of inspiration.
I have to agree, it's inspirational
for women just in their day.
Yeah, I have to
Yeah,
agree.
I hope so.
I have to agree. So what we normally do, Renee, as we wrap up the show, we always ask our beautiful guests to give us 3 gold nuggets that they would like to give to our listeners. So what would be your 3 gold nuggets?
Firstly, that happiness is a choice. Definitely. It's entirely up to you, and it's entirely your responsibility. It can't be based on a man. It can't be based on how much money you have or a circumstance. It's something that you make a decision to either focus on, to hinder, or progress daily. Secondly, that, love and relationships are hard work, and even the great relationships are hard work, but that's honestly what makes them great. And it's something that requires consistent attention to it, but it really can be something that's completely rewarding. And like I said, it's when it comes to relationships, great relationships, it's not just about a feeling, it's about an action. And the third thing I would have to say is that, if you really want to achieve something in life, whether it's losing weight, whether it's building a business, whether it's, finding that dream marriage that you really want, it is possible. You just need to want it bad enough to be able to discipline yourself, to be able to do what it takes. And, you really can create the life that you desire. It's just a matter of equipping yourself with the right tools and the right mindset as well.
Oh, I love it. And I have to agree with you. I always look at the analogy. I've got a little fireplace, and I look at that as almost like being the relationship. To keep that fire going, you constantly have to be attentive to it and add wood to it. And I look at the relationships very much like that. It's constant, and it does take work and time and energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And daily, it's not just, you have your great patches and you have your rough patches, but it's the daily choices that we make that actually shape our relationship.
I agree. Look, Renee, it's been so wonderful to have you on the show. How can our listeners find you?
All they have to do is if they want to follow my website, it's just thedatingdirectory.co. Of course, I also have a Facebook fan page and Instagram and Twitter account, which is either at Renee Slansky or The Dating Directory. So it's all on the website anyway. So if they want, they can just jump online. Also subscribe to my blog as well. And make sure that they don't miss out on any of the posts that we share. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry,
Okay,
I think we just had a moment. Completely went into ether just then. Renee, thank you so much once again for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure our listeners will love connecting with you. And definitely get on the dating directory. It's amazing. There's everything on there. So once again, thank you so very much.
That's all right. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Take care.
You too.
That brings us to the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed the show, as it is my mission to reach out and inspire as many individuals like you. And one of the best ways to help us achieve this goal is by giving us a good review on iTunes. It's easy and it only takes about 10 seconds. If you have any questions or special guests that you would like to hear from, please send us an email to support@catherineplano.com.au and we will get right back to you. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter or Facebook at Catherine Plano. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. Until next week, please take care.